Howdy, Legendary Void here, and today I have my Encounter 4 Bayformers second place deck that I took in their most recent event and did pretty well with. We're going to discuss the deck and yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So the main character piece of this deck is Sky-Byte from the Arc. He's an 11-star character who's incredibly powerful. He's a 7/15/1, and when he attacks you get to put the top 3 cards of your deck face down under him. Now you might be wondering why he would do this, and that's mostly because of his bot mode, which is a 6/15/0, so he loses an attack and defense when he flips. But whenever you flip to his bot mode, you get to play a card from under him, and it scraps at the end of the turn. So that's mostly because he can't keep weapons or secret actions in play. But I believe that is actually being removed in an errata soon, although I'm not 100% sure about that. Then he has his stratagem, which is Predacon Fortitude, and this is what really makes the character shine. For each card he has under him, he gets +1 health and +1 defense up to +3/+3. Now this is incredibly powerful because that means on the first time he's going to swing in alt mode, that means he's going to be at 18 health and 4 defense, which is just absolutely incredible for what is an effectively 12-star character. So he's really good, and yeah, moving on to the next character, we have Crash Bash from Bayformers. I have been playing Crash Bash for a while now. I really like this character, and he's incredibly strong. He's a 4/10/2, and when he attacks and flips a number of orange less than or equal to his defense, he gets +2 attack for it. So let's say he attacks and flips 2 oranges, he's now swinging for 8, ignoring any upgrades he might have. So that's incredibly powerful, and then he also has a super strong ability in body mode. He's a 4/10/1, but whenever he attacks an enemy without KOing it and you flipped at least orange-blue, you can move that damage from the enemy just attacked to a different enemy if you choose. And that's just an incredibly powerful ability. And with this deck, we're running Kreb on him to make him 8 stars in total. And the last character we're playing is Gnaw from the Arc. He is a 3/10/2 mercenary, and whenever you flip to his alt mode, you get to return a mercenary card from your scrap pile to your hand, and that is just such an incredibly powerful ability, mostly because you get to grab Opportune Offensive, but we'll talk about that later. And he does have a pretty decent ability in bot mode, being a 3/10/1. He gives one of your Sharkticons Bolt 2. Obviously, he's the only Sharkticon on the field, so he's going to be giving it to himself. And I didn't actually realize this whenever I built the deck originally, but all of them are kind of ocean themed, water themed, and I just thought that was a neat little coincidence. Moving on to the actions, we do have 3 copies of Engelmaw Surge, since every single one of them is melee, except for Sky-Byte in bot mode, but that's not the mode you really want to be attacking with him in anyways. But it does 1 damage to one of your melee characters and gives them +4 attack. You can ignore the second part because it doesn't really apply here. It is a blue card, so it's incredibly good in orange decks, but obviously it has that blue pip to kind of balance it out, so that they're not flipping too hard on offense if you're playing all 3. Next we have 2 copies of Assault Formation, which is one of the cards I wished I had run all 3 of in the deck. The entire time I was playing the tournament, I wish I had run all 3 because it gives one of your melee characters Bolt 2, and you get to move 1 damage from one of your ranged characters to an enemy and flip one of your specialists to another mode. Now there are no specialists on this on the main team, but you do get to move 1 damage from a ranged character, which is Sky-Byte in bot mode, and then you give basically anybody Bolt 2 with the melee part of the attacks. Plus it's a black, blue, green, and that's just such a good pip coloring. Next we have 3 copies of Precision Fire in orange-black action. You get to choose a mode and do 1 damage to each character that is not in that mode. This is mostly so that we have a little bit more pierce, as well as some direct damage in case we actually need it. We're also playing 2 copies of Belligerence, just because this card is just an absolute mad card, especially in a mixed deck like this one. This deck ended up being a lot more mixed than I wanted it to be when I originally made it. That actually saved me quite a few times in the tournament. But this lets you turn each blue either player flips during the turn into an orange instead, and the fact that it lasts the entire turn is just absolutely incredible. Next we have 3 copies of Opportune Offensive. Like I said earlier, we're playing this mostly because Gnaw just makes this card absolutely absurd. It's a black-blue, so it's got a good pip coloring. But you can only play this if you had a mercenary on your starting team, and one of your Decepticons gets +3 attack and Pierce 3 until the end of turn, which is just absolutely insane. And because Gnaw can completely recover it with his alt mode flip, of course we're going to be playing all 3 so that we can play it on Crash Bash and Sky-Byte so that they can swing for even harder. Next we have 3 copies of Peace Through Tyranny. This is mostly because we wanted more orange pips for the deck, but you can also KO Crash Bash to gain that extra turn, although again it's not that recommended. That actually is what caused me to lose one of my games in the finals, is that I pieced through Tyranny at the wrong time, and it was not good, not great. Although it is a bit of an issue whenever it gets under Sky-Byte and you flip it and you don't want to play it. It's a little frustrating in that regard though. Next we have 2 copies of Beast Mode. This is a orange action from the Arc. And you get to choose one of your characters that's a Predacon or a Beast, and when it attacks an enemy in body mode this turn, it gets bold 4, and if you look at all the characters, they are all Beasts in alt mode, which is really, really good with this card. Next we have 3 copies of Master Metallicato, and this is just because we have such a mixed color deck that this just makes sense to play, since if we flip all 5 colors, we're getting +5 attack for it. Plus there's plenty of ways to get bold in this deck, whether it be through Gnaw or Assault Formation or some other way. Really good card, plus the pip coloring is actually not that bad, making it defensive for the melee characters, and you can get Pierce from Sky-Byte in bot mode if you swing with them there. And the last action we're playing is 1 copy of Escape Route. This is just in case you want to flip Gnaw a couple extra times, or even flip Sky-Byte to play a card from under him and then flip him back to alt mode to swing. It was a pretty decent flip option. It's a white-green action, so you get to pick it up if you want to during a battle, so it just worked a little bit for doing some fancy stuff. For secret actions, we have 3 copies of Turnabout Snare, just because this card is so broken. It's such a good card, because basically whenever one of your characters defends, you're going to swap the attacker's attack and defense, including upgrades, so they are basically going to swing for their defense value. It's just such a powerful ability, and it actually doesn't do too much against Sky-Byte because he's going to have that 4 defense, so he's only losing 3 attacks, so that's actually not that bad in total. But it is a really, really powerful card, so of course we're going to run all 3 of them. And the last secret action we're playing is 1 copy of Lose the Battle. Again, since most of our characters are melees, we get to pick it up with the hybrid melee green. So that's pretty cool, but whenever one of your characters defends, you get to return a weapon from your scrap pile to your hand. And that can be any of the 5 that we're playing over here, including 2 Energon X, because a lot of our characters are going to be able to take damage from Angle Maw Surge, so if you Angle Maw Surge while they don't have any damage, all of a sudden they do, and then you Energon X, and that's +7 attack that you're getting just off of 1 turn. It's pretty cool. It's a blue pip though, so it is hurting a little bit on the aggro side, but again, this is really mixed, so it doesn't hurt that bad. Next we have 3 copies of Grenade Launcher, just a staple weapon since the beginning of the game, a +4 weapon that scraps itself after you attack. Very, very good. We also have 2 copies of Tsunami Blaster for Sky-Byte. It is a orange-green weapon from the Arc that gives +1 attack, and you can't put it on Autobots, but the upgraded character has bold 1 for each card under it, up to bold 4. So meaning that the first time Sky-Byte swings, he's going to have bold 3 from this card, and the next time, if he has 4 cards under him, he's going to be able to swing for bold 4, and that's just incredibly powerful. Next we have 2 copies of Power Punch. This is a bold 3 weapon that scraps itself. It's not quite as powerful as Tsunami Blaster, and even in this deck, I kind of wished I had played something else instead of it during the tournament, because bold 3 in a heavily mixed deck like this, it just doesn't exactly feel great, except for whenever you're played a Master Metallicato, in which case you're getting to flip more cards, so you're going to get hopefully more battle icons and get that full +5 boost. And the last weapon we're playing is 1 copy of Vampire Ribbon. It's a orange-green weapon from the Arc, and when the upgraded character attacks and does 4 more attack damage, you get to repair 2 damage from it. Now this is a pretty good late-game card for whenever you have a lot of damaged characters, and you know that something like Sky-Byte or Crash Bash is going to be able to hit really hard. You just put it on it, and boom, you're healing 2 every time they deal 4 or more, and that's just really, really powerful. Next, on to the armors, which we are only playing 1, and it's going to be 2 copies of Bashing Shield, just because Bashing Shield is such an incredibly powerful card. Obviously, it's the orange-green armor staple, gives +1 defense, and you scrap an enemy armor. This card just makes most blue decks, at least ones that want to play armors onto them, a little irrelevant, except for Triplate, because Triplate's broken. But we're not running Triplate in here, because it was banned during this tournament, and I feel like if it wasn't, this tournament would have been a lot different, especially for Captain Omega Supreme. But moving on to the utilities, we do have 1 copy of Pocket Processor. Again, just such a powerful card, being able to put on one of your characters as early as you can, and then just start drawing extra cards for the rest of the game, except for your opponent reprocess it, and that's just a sad day. but really good card. And the only other utility it'll be competing for a utility slot for is Polydermograph, in which case by that time you've probably drawn enough cards that you don't really need them, and you can just put this onto one of your characters. It takes damage, but it gets +4 total health, which is just really good overall. Moving on to the sideboard, the sideboard character is going to be Blast Off from the Arc. He's a 2/8/2 in alt mode, and he's a spaceship specialist, which the specialist part will be important in regards to assault formation, but whenever he attacks a tank or a truck, he gets +2 attack, so it goes up to 4. Pretty neat ability there. It won't be as important as the bot mode, because the bot mode is why we're playing him in the first place. He's a 2/8/2. When you flip to his bot mode, you get to do 2 damage to a ranged enemy. Now, the main reason I decided to put this in the sideboard is mostly so that it can keep pinging Perceptor, because Perceptor is ranged in bot mode, and especially when your opponent's going to be trying to hide him away for as long as they can, and keep flipping him to get those cards underneath him. It did work in a couple other matchups, especially against patrol leaders like Bomb Shock, getting to hit him for like 6 damage before he even swung a single time. Really powerful card, and again, he's specialist in both modes, so he will be able to constantly be flipping with assault formations. As for the sideboard battle cards, we have 1 copy of Lost in Transit, and when your opponent plays a black action, you can scrap it and it has no effect. Now this is a pretty powerful card considering how often black cards are played. You can see in this deck there's Opportune Offensive, Assault Formation, Precision Fire, heck, a lot of other staples in decks are going to be black cards like K-Main Crush, so we want to cancel them out with Lost in Transit. Part of me wishes I had played 2 in the sideboard instead of just 1, because I opted at the last second to change it out for a Cacophonous Failure, which is an Arc secret action. It's green, and when your opponent plays an action with no battle icons, you get to scrap that action and it has no effect. I mostly did this so that if my opponent was running a heavy secret action deck, I could play this down, and since when secret actions are played, they're counted as actions with no battle icons, I could just cancel them out with this. But in the end, I was running Counter Espionage to deal with secret actions, so it almost felt like Cacophonous Failure while I was in the tournament wasn't worth citing in ever. Whereas I would have definitely preferred having 2 Lost in Transit in my deck 100% of the time. And again, we are playing 2 copies of Counter Espionage just because looking at your opponent's secret actions and trying to cancel them out by calling them out is just such a powerful card. Plus, it's not just secret actions, you get to call out something in your opponent's hand, and all copies of it are scrapped from there, so it's a very, very good card. We also have 2 copies of Hold the Line for wide small character decks like the one military patrol deck I played against, which was the entire military patrol and Arc Brawl, and this is just a really good card to make sure that they're not going to be doing more than their star cost in damage. We also had 1 copy of Belligerence to round out to 3. I'm kind of a firm believer that you should be running 2 Belligerence or 2 End Hostilities in your main board, and then the 3rd one in your sideboard, just because it just makes so much sense, at least in my mind. I can't really explain it, but it makes a lot of sense to me, just because it's such a powerful card. Next, we're playing 1 copy of Reprocess. This is just because the deck needed a little bit more upgrade hate than it did. So if my opponent was running a lot of upgrades that needed to be removed, I would side in Reprocess to get rid of them. Just because it's a green card and you can pick it up, but it does repair 2 damage from him. In a lot of cases that doesn't actually matter, but it is worth noting. Next we have 1 copy of Hollow Matter, and this card was just kind of, Hollow Matter is just making me more and more not want to put it into my sideboards, because it's an armor. Yes, it prevents non-attack damage from your opponent's cards, but because it's an armor, it's just so unplayable, because it's just going to get bashed off or something immediately. Because it's such a high priority target card. I wish it stuck around more than it does, but it's just, you know, it's worth playing in the sideboard just because there are so many direct damage decks in the game right now. And the last battle card in the sideboard is going to be Spy Sat, which is a black-green. It gives +1 attack to one of your characters, and then your opponent can't use Brave or Stealth against the upgraded character. And I've seen some decks use Brave and Stealth really well, and I think because of that, Spy Sat is a must in most, if not all, sideboards. And yeah, that was my encounter for deck. It was really powerful. Obviously, it took me all the way to the finals to get 2nd place just to lose the Sky Shadow, but it was really fun, a lot of fun to play. I did a lot of really fun, goofy stuff, and I hate Pierce Through Tyranny a lot because do you know how many times I flipped that and flipped Sky-Byte and played it from under him. It was just an absurd number of times. It was almost laughable towards the end of the tournament because it happened at least once a game. Real goofy stuff, but yeah, this is my encounter for Deck Tech, and thank you all so much for watching. As always, have a phenomenal day. Peace.
Hey everyone, I wanted to direct you to TopDeckTCG.com. This is a quick and easy to use website where you can purchase Transformers TCG singles as well as products from a variety of other games. When you order on Top Deck, you can use the code Legendary Void as you see on screen to get 10% off your entire order. Don't forget to go check them out.